The universe kept its greatest secret buried in the corpse of a dead star. Kyrion Valtra felt it die. From the bridge of his crumbling warship, he watched Xyridian collapse, a planet of crystalline spires and singing forests devoured by the black hole it had orbited for millennia. The void screamed as gravity shredded his home into stardust, but Kyrion didn't flinch. His hands, gloved in bioluminescent scars, gripped the ship's controls. One relic survived, the energy core buried in his chest, the last ember of Xyridian's heartbeat. It seared his ribs as he plunged into the wormhole, its light dimming with every parsec. He'd be ash by sunrise, a fitting end for a king without a crown. But fate, it seemed, had claws. A scavenger's blade pried the core from the wreckage years later, unaware of the fire it carried. Seren Quist didn't believe in ghosts, but she believed in survival. The derelict ship she'd boarded reeked of ionized rot, its walls tattooed with scorch marks and glyphs that moved when she blinked. The core glowed in her palm, a hexagonal prism humming with a language her neural implant couldn't parse. Valuable, she thought, dangerous. The syndicates would kill for it. She pocketed it anyway. Neither knew their fates had already collided. The core remembered. It pulsed in time with Kyrion's dying breaths, a beacon across light years. It whispered to Seren in dreams, filling her skull with visions of glass cities and a voice that wasn't hers. You don't remember. By the time the first enforcers tracked her to the bone dunes, the secret had already begun to unravel. The core was more than a relic, it was a key to salvation, to annihilation, to a king who'd crossed galaxies to reclaim what the stars had stolen. But some doors, once opened, couldn't be closed. The universe held its breath. Chapter 1. The derelict starship groaned like a dying beast, its rusted hull buckling under the weight of Vathra 9 sandstorms. Seren Quist adjusted her respirator, the frayed straps biting into her jaw as she climbed through a fissure in the ship's belly. Her cybernetic eye flickered, its night vision overlay staining the darkness in sickly green. She hated this model, a cheap implant scavenged from a corpse in the Zevrik slums, but it did the job, mostly. The air inside stank of corroded metal and something sharper, like ozone after a reactor meltdown. Her boots crunched over debris, the sound echoing through the carcass of what had once been a luxury cruiser. Now it was just another tomb in the wasteland, picked clean by vultures like her. She crouched beside a shattered control panel, prying open its casing with a vibroblade. Wires slithered out, their insulation cracked. Useless, but beneath them, half buried in ash, something glowed. A faint cerulean pulse, rhythmic as a heartbeat. Seren froze. Light meant power. Power meant danger. Her fingers hovered, trembling. The glow seeped into the cracks of her gloves, warm, almost alive. She dug faster, breath fogging her visor. Artifact emerged, a hexagonal prism, its surface etched with spiraling glyphs that writhed under her touch. It hummed, a low vibrational thrum that traveled up her bones. Her neural implant flared, static spiking behind her temples. She stumbled back, clutching her skull. For a split second, the ship wasn't dead. Light flooded the corridors, holographic constellations swirling across the walls. A voice, deep and resonant, reverberated through the metal. Xyridian's legacy cannot fall to the void. Then darkness. The vision left her nauseous. She shoved the prism into her pack, its weight unnervingly light, too valuable to leave, too dangerous to keep. The syndicate enforcers found her at the edge of the bone dunes. Seren crouched behind a sandstone outcrop, her pulse throbbing in her throat. 3 of them, their exosuits gleaming obsidian under Vathra 9 twin moons. Obsidian worm insignias glowed crimson on their pauldrons. She gripped her ion pistol, its charge indicator blinking red. Stupid. She'd lingered too long at the crash site. Scanning for energy signatures, droned one enforcer, his voice filtered through a helmet modulator. A handheld device word, its beam sweeping the dunes. Seren pressed deeper into the shadows. The prism's glow seeped through her pack's seams. Stupid, stupid, stupid. She'd heard stories about the worm's methods, how they flayed traitors alive in the market square, how they fed dissenters to their genetically engineered hounds. Her cybernetic eye spasmed, blurring her vision. She shut it off, plunging herself into half-blindness. Sand whispered against her boots as she crept backward. A rock dislodged, clattered. The enforcers turned in unison. Seren ran. Gunfire erupted, searing the air. Plasma bolts cratered the sand around her. She zigzagged, lungs burning, toward the neon sprawl of Nexarian slums. The enforcers' thrusters whined. They were gaining. Her pack straps dug into her shoulders, the prism's heat searing her spine. An alley materialized ahead, cramped and reeking of coolant. She dove into its mouth, boots skidding on grease-slick permacrete. Shadows swallowed her. The enforcer's footsteps echoed, deliberate. "You're only making this worse," one called. His tone was almost conversational. "Hand over the core and we'll make it quick." Seren pressed against a corroded dumpster, her pistol shaking in her grip. The core, so that's what it was. The enforcer's scanner beeped, louder now. She closed her eyes. A sound like shattering glass, then light. It wasn't the harsh glare of plasma fire. This was colder, sharper, starlight compressed into a blade. Seren peered around the dumpster. The enforcers were gone. In their place stood a man. No, not a man. His silhouette wavered, edges blurred as if he were a hologram struggling to coalesce. Bioluminescent scars laddered his arms, pulsing azure. His eyes' stars lived there, not the romanticized kind from old Earth poems, but the true void between the void, ancient and hungry. He turned, Seren's breath hitched. His face was gaunt, all sharp angles and pallid skin stretched too tight over bone. Yet his expression, God's, it was relief, as if he'd found something he'd thought lost forever. "You," he said. The word was a rasp, like wind over a desert grave. She fired. The iron bolt passed through him, dispersing into harmless sparks. He didn't flinch. Seren backpedaled, boots tangling in refuse. He stepped forward and the scars on his arms brightened, casting the alley in jagged shadows. "Wait," he raised a hand, and for a heartbeat she did. His voice was wrong, not the enforcer's mechanical growl, but layered, harmonized, as if two people spoke through one throat. "You don't remember." A statement, not a question. Seren's neural implant sparked, pain lancing her skull. A memory, no, a nightmare, the same one that haunted her since the starfall. A crystalline pod engulfed in solar flames. A scream that wasn't hers. She ran. Her hideout was a coffin-sized room in the stacks, a vertical shantytown welded to Nexarian's geothermal vents. Seren barricaded the door, tossing her pack onto the cot. The prism rolled out, its glow painting the walls in liquid sapphire. She paced, fingers knotting in her hair. "You don't remember." She yanked open a rusted wall panel, retrieving a neural jack. Her hands shook as she plugged it into her implant's port. The prism's glyphs pulsed in time with her heartbeat. "Decrypt," she ordered. Her cybernetic eye glazed over, code cascading across her vision. Firewalls crumbled. A hologram flickered to life, a planet crystalline and impossibly fragile. A black hole devoured it, tendrils of spacetime curling like claws. And there, amidst the debris, a ship, her ship. Seren's breath stalled. The Starfall. She'd been piloting a junk freighter, running med supplies to the outer colonies. A wormhole spat her into the Xyridian system seconds before collapse. The ship's logs showed her firing grapplers at a pod, crystalline, glowing, before the black hole's radiation washed over the cockpit. The hologram froze. A face filled the screen. Gaunt, star-scarred, his voice harmonized and raw, seeped into her bones. "You pulled me from the event horizon. I owe you a life." Seren ripped the jack out, gasping. The prism dimmed. Outside, Nexarian's neon signs bled through her filthy window, painting the room in poison hues. She pressed her forehead to the glass. Far below, the city throbbed, a mechanical heartbeat. Somewhere in its depths, he was watching. She slid down the wall, clutching the prism to her chest. Its warmth seeped into her, familiar and terrifying. Her nightmares had a face now, and a name, though she didn't know it yet. Kyrion Valtra, the last Zyridian, the man who'd crossed a galaxy to find her. Chapter 2. The neon haze of Nexarian's slums dissolved into a deeper darkness, the air thickening with the damp chill of subterranean caverns. Seren Quist trailed her fingertips along the tunnel wall, the rock slick with bioluminescent algae that stained her gloves a faint, ghostly blue. Kyrion Valtra walked ahead, his silhouette blurred at the edges, as if the darkness itself resisted his presence. She kept 10 paces between them, her boots crunching over brittle crystalline shards that littered the path. The prism no, the core, burned in her pack, its hum syncing with the ache in her neural implant. She didn't trust him, but the Syndicate's hounds had begun prowling the stacks, their howls echoing through the vents, nowhere else to go. The tunnel opened into a cavern so vast her cybernetic eye couldn't map its ceiling. Nexarian's undercity sprawled below, a labyrinth of obsidian spires and bridges woven from starlight. Not the garish neon of the surface, but a cold, ancient glow. Kyrion's domain. His scars brightened as they descended, the azure veins in his skin pulsing like dormant constellations. Seren's breath fogged. She counted the weapons hidden in her coat. A plasma knife, 2 ion charges, the pistol she'd emptied into him days ago. Useless, but the weight comforted her. He paused at a bridge, its translucent surface reflecting the void above. "You're safe here," he said, the harmonics in his voice flattening, as though he'd practiced the lie. She laughed, the sound brittle. "Safe, you lit up that alley like a supernova. The worms got drones scanning every rat hole from here to the equator." His silence was answer enough. Her quarters were a cell draped in shadows, high in one of the spires. The walls shimmered with embedded Zyridian tech, fractals spiraling into infinity. Seren paced, the core's glow leaking from her unpacked bag. She'd shoved it under the bed, but its pulse thrummed through the floor, a second heartbeat. Sleep was impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the hologram, the black hole, her ship, the pod she'd dragged into the warp bubble. "You pulled me from the event horizon." She jacked into her implant, replaying the decrypted logs. Static, a scream, the cockpit's radiation alarms blaring, then a voice, hers younger, raw with panic. "Hold on, damn you." A knock shattered the memory. Seren unplugged, her vision swimming. The door irised open. No one there, but on the threshold lay a package, a new cybernetic eye sleek and silver, its lens etched with Zyridian glyphs. She crouched wary, no note, no demands, just a gift. She pocketed it. Days bled into one another. Seren mapped the Undercity, its twisting alleys and markets selling alien relics. The locals, a mix of human exiles and species with too many eyes, avoided her. Whispers trailed in her wake, Valtra's pet, starborn shadow. She ignored them. The core's pull grew harder to resist. At night, she'd hold it, its warmth leaching into her palms. Sometimes she swore it whispered. Kyrion was everywhere and nowhere. She'd glimpse him on distant bridges, conferring with robed figures. Once in a market, she found a drone's mangled carcass, worm insignia scorched off, its circuits melted by starlight. Coincidence had to be. But then the sandstorm hit. Vathra 9 storms were living things, ravenous and sentient. Seren had been surface-side, trading scrap in a smuggler's den when the sky bruised violet. The first winds ripped the respirator off a scavenger, flaying his face raw. She ran, sand needling her exposed skin. The storm swallowed the slums, reducing the world to a howling void. A hand seized her wrist. She lashed out, her plasma knife igniting. Kyrion's grip didn't waver. His scars blazed, cutting through the storm's gloom. "This way," he shouted, the harmonics fraying. She followed. The cave was a fissure in the bedrock, its walls streaked with veins of Xyridian crystal. Kyrion sealed the entrance with a pulse of energy, the storm's roar muffled to a distant wail. Seren slumped against the wall, her augments overheating. He knelt across from her, his light the only warmth in the cold. "Why?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "Why protect me?" He unclasped his vambrace, revealing a scar unlike the others, jagged, blackened. "When you pulled me from the collapse, the radiation, it burned you. Your ship's logs were erased. Your memories," he hesitated. "I tried to heal you, but your mind, it retreated." Her chest tightened. She saw it then, not a warlord, but a man clinging to a debt older than her nightmares. "So this is guilt." "No," his gaze held hers, the stars in his eyes dimming. "It's hope." The core's hum swelled, Seren's vision fractured. The Astra link wasn't a ritual, it was an unraveling. Kyrion pressed the core to her palm. Light erupted, searing through her neural implant. She screamed, but no sound came. Visions tore through her. A planet of glass forests, their canopies singing in solar winds. Kyrion, whole and unmarked, kneeling in a temple as the sky ruptured. Her own hands, younger, unsteady, gripping a ship's yoke as the black hole roared. The core fused with her, its energy threading her veins. She gasped, her cybernetics sparking. Kyrion's hand steadied her, his touch colder than the cave. "Breathe," he murmured. She did. The world sharpened. The cave's crystals whispered. The storm's rage softened to a melody. "What did you do to me?" He smiled, faint and sorrowful, "Gave you a choice. The Syndicate struck at dusk." Seren was in the Undercity's heart, a plaza where Xyridian refugees peddled star maps. The core hung at her throat now, a pendant. She stopped hiding it. Kyrion's silent guardians, drones shaped like skeletal birds perched on nearby spires. A child tugged her sleeve, offering a shard of crystal. Seren reached for a credit chip. Pain exploded in her skull, neural feedback, her implant overloading. The drones shrieked. Rexa Torv stepped from the crowd, her exosuit black as a singularity. "Hello, little thief." Seren stumbled, the plaza emptied, refugees vanishing into shadows. Rex's grin was a blade. Valtra's been careless, letting his pet scurry about. The core flared, Seren's vision doubled, the black hole, the pod, Kyrion's scream as spacetime tore. "He'll trade the core for you," Rexa said, willingly. Seren ran, the drones dive-bombed Rexa, but the Syndicate leader swung a chainsword shredding metal. Plasma fire lit the plaza. Seren dodged, her new eye calculating trajectories. A bolt grazed her shoulder. She fell. Hands dragged her up, not Rexa's, Kyrion's. His scars were blinding now, a supernova contained in flesh. "Go," he growled, shoving her toward a tunnel. "Oh, she didn't." The last thing she saw before the stun grenade hit, Kyrion, outlined in fury, facing Rex's army alone. Chapter 3. The Syndicate's orbital fortress hung in the silence between stars, a jagged spire of blackened alloy and throbbing crimson lights. Seren Quist floated in zero gravity, her wrists bound by magnetic cuffs that leached the heat from her bones. The core pulsed at her throat, its cerulean glow clashing with the blood-red hue of the detention cell. They'd stripped her of weapons, her coat, even the cheap cybernetic eye Kyrion had given her, but they hadn't taken the core. Couldn't. It had fused to her skin, tendrils of light knitting into her collarbone, a symbiosis she didn't understand, a tether to a man she wasn't sure she knew. Through the cell's viewport, Vathra 9 was a rotting jewel, its atmosphere choked with storms. Seren pressed her palm to the glass. Somewhere in that wasteland, Kyrion was dying. She felt it, a hollow ache beneath her ribs as though part of her had been carved out and left to bleed. The Astra Link, his final gift or his final cruelty. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Seren turned, the core's light flaring defensively. Rexa Torv stood in the doorway, her exosuit polished to a mirror sheen, reflecting Seren's gaunt face. The syndicate leader smiled, a slow, venomous curl of lips. He's here. The reactor chamber was a cathedral to annihilation. Towering fusion coils throbbed with unstable energy, their vibrations shuddering through Seren's teeth. Kyrion knelt at the center, his bioluminescent scars dark, reduced to ashen trails. They'd chained him to the floor with nullfield generators, their hum drowning out the core's song. He didn't look up as Seren entered, but his voice scraped through her mind, faint as static. Leave. Rexa shoved Seren forward. Your warlord's been cooperative, handed himself over like a lovesick drone. She unsheathed her chainsword, its serrated teeth whirring. But we need the core to power our little superweapon. Be a good pet and pry it loose. Seren's fingers trembled at her throat. The core's tendrils flexed, resisting. Kyrion finally lifted his head. His eyes were voids now, the stars within guttering. Yet his voice, when it came, was steady. Don't. She stepped closer. The nullfield seared her skin, but she knelt, her knees brushing his. The core's light spilled over him, revealing cracks in his skin, tiny fissures where the Zyridian energy had leaked away. He was crumbling, a statue of ash and regret. Why? She whispered. His hand twitched, a phantom impulse to touch her. You were never my debt to repay. You were a star I thought I'd lost. Rex's laughter echoed, touching, but the core now. The core didn't unravel, it detonated. Seren's vision whited out. The Astra Link roared to life, a bridge of starlight between her mind and Kyrion's. Memories not her own flooded her. Kyrion as a child, racing through Zyridian's glass forests, his laughter harmonizing with the singing trees. The black hole's event horizon, his pod disintegrating as Seren's grapplers locked on. 1,000 nights watching her from Nexarian's shadows, his scars dimming with every wasted year. The fusion coils overhead screamed. Seren's cybernetics sparked, her neural implant melting under the core's surge. But she didn't let go, couldn't. The reactor's heart ruptured, plasma geysering into the chamber. Rexa fled, her exosuit scorched. Kyrion's chains vaporized. He surged upright, his body drinking in the core's radiance. The fissures in his skin sealed, his scars reigniting, not blue but gold, supernova gold. He reached for Seren, his hands steady. Together. She gripped it, let him pull her into the inferno. The explosion tore through the fortress, a newborn star devouring steel and sin. Seren floated in the heart of it, the core's energy entwined with her DNA. Kyrion's arms encircled her, his body a shield against the fury they'd unleashed. She felt the exact moment her humanity frayed, felt the core reweave her, stitch by stitch, into something more. When the light faded, they drifted in the debris field. Kyrion's scars pulsed gently, casting amber halos over Seren's hands. Her veins glowed, a lattice of starlight beneath her skin. No cybernetics, no implants, just the Astra Link binding them. What am I? She breathed. Kyrion pressed his forehead to hers. Alive. The rogue exoplanet was a sapphire scar in the cosmos, its surface veined with rivers of liquid light. Kyrion set their stolen shuttle down in a valley where crystalline trees hummed with solar winds. Seren stepped onto the soil, barefoot. The ground warmed beneath her, the light rivers rippling in greeting. Kyrion followed, his scars dimming to a soft glow. She turned to him. What now? He knelt, scooping a handful of stardust. It trickled through his fingers, forming Zyridian glyphs. We rebuild, not a kingdom, a sanctuary. The word hung between them, fragile. Seren touched the core at her throat. It pulsed in time with the planet's heartbeat. She'd spent years running, from syndicates, from memories, from the gravity of her own fractured soul. But here now, the void felt like home. At dusk, they stood atop a glass ridge, watching the twin suns bleed into the horizon. Seren's hair stirred in the wind, strands catching the light like molten silver. Kyrion's hand found hers, his skin no longer cold. "Will it last?" she asked. He didn't answer, didn't need to. The core's song swelled, harmonizing with the planet's pulse. Somewhere in the valley, a crystal tree shivered, its branches blooming with alien flora. Seren closed her eyes. For the first time, her nightmares were silent.